Well, hello, my name is Jacob, and in this video, I'm going to show you how I approached building the guitar sound for my cover of Pink Floyd's Another Brick in the Wall Part 2 solo. And if you haven't listened to it yet, please go and take a listen. I'll wait. This song is famous for many reasons, but for guitar players, it's also famous for its sound. It's a very rare sound for guitar, and it's not easy to achieve. So with this recording, I try to get close to the sound, even if it's not necessarily exactly the same in the original recording. And so I want to go over the goals of this sound, like what's special about it. So the first thing is the very good sustains, but there's no like grainy distortion there. So for example, let's take this part. So the guitar kind of sings there. You always expect some kind of gain there, but it doesn't sound like the distortion from the 80s. But I still wanted the guitar to break up when I hit it harder where there are double stops, for example. So let's take a listen to this section. Yeah, so I can hear this is not a clean sound, but it's still not distortion. It's kind of an edge of breakup kind of sound. Well, and the last thing is the singing sound. Like the guitar has a very singing sound with, I guess, a lot of upper harmonics, but it still has its like body and like fullness. And of course, the sound is very kind of analog, right? And has a very finished feel. This is what I want to go for. I want it to sound like it's a finished kind of recording. So this is what I'm trying to do, and I will break it down. What do we know about how the song was recorded? Well, many people know it was recorded with a Les Paul, actually, and not a Stratocaster. And it was a Les Paul with P90 pickups. It went straight into the recording console, which was kind of unusual, and maybe this is part of the magic of this sound. But also, I found this little known fact. So this is from a Roland website, and it says that, well, it went into the mixing desk and then gated and compressed before running it back into a Mesa Boogie Mark I, which was mic'd up. So it was kind of recording, went through the console, and then went into the amp, and not the other way around. And of course, it went into the amp and then back into the console, right? So we had the console twice. Now, although I have some hardware that I could use to emulate this flow, like I have a hardware preamp from Warm Audio, which is an Eve-like preamp. It has an EQ, so it's basically like a channel strip. And I have some compressors. I have a compressor pedal, and I have an outboard compressor. And I even have a Mark V, Mesa Boogie Mark V amp that has a Mark I mode. Frankly, for like an evening or two, I tried to get the sound that I wanted out of this hardware, and it was really hard to dial in and get like all of these features that I was going for. So eventually I said, okay, I will try and go with kind of mixed hardware and software and have the most done in software. And I'll try to build this kind of setup that they were talking about in software and take into account other knowledge, like the mixing knowledge, and incorporate that to get close to this sound. Okay, so the thing is, I don't have a Les Paul with P90s. And P90s are kind of like single coils, but with a more body. Unlike a Strat single coils. I have a Les Paul with humbuckers, but really the difference between humbuckers and single coils here to me sounded more important than the difference between a Strat and the Les Paul. After trying it with the Les Paul with the humbuckers, I decided to focus on working with the Strat instead because of its single coils. So the whole solo is played on the neck pickup. And I think this is what happens in the original as well. It's not trebly, it has the body of the neck pickup. So my signal went from the Strat into the Warm Audio 73Q, which is kind of similar in sound to British Neve consoles, which would have been appropriate for the 70s. The good thing, these have transformers and then the EQ. So I could push the transformer for like more gain and saturation of the transformer, and then a little bit high pass so that the bass is not so strong from the neck pickup. And I had some body like on the 700 and 12K just for the like more air. So I played with it until I got a sound that I liked. I will now play the clean sound of the guitar as it was recorded from this straight into the audio interface. So this is the clean sound as it was recorded from the audio interface. I added a little bit of gain here, like 7 decibel, because I bypassed all the other plugins. So let's go. So notice the different volume levels. The sound is very dynamic, right? And so when I do the double strokes, it's relatively loud. And then here it's quite quiet. And this is where the compression comes in, right? So it says that the original signal was gated and went through compression in the console and then into the amp. And of course, the amp has its own distortion. So let's see what I have in this chain here. So this is the channel for the guitar, right? So it goes from the input into this first plugin. So this first plugin is a limiter and compressor. And I don't use a limiter here for some reason. I kind of went with the compressor. So it's a slower compressor, and 4:1 ratio. The threshold is set, so it kind of would make sense. There's some gain, and the quickest recovery. So like the what we usually call release, right? So the fastest release, but the slower compression attack. And the slow attack will allow for some of the initial peak attack to go through. So if I just turn on the compressor, this is what it will sound like. Okay, so let's see versus what we had before. So this is... and without. So much more dynamic. So now the volume is a little bit more even, but there's also a little bit more snappiness on the quiet sounds on the beginning of the peak attack. So the compressor here doesn't compress that much. I think we go to about 5 dB. So here, yeah, 5-6 dB maximum. But as you will see, we have other levels of compression going after that. So the next plugin is the Overloud TH-U, which is a whole system to build sound for guitars. It's like Guitar Rig or Amplitude or any of the other applications that have pedals or amp simulators, speaker simulators, and reverbs, delay, and all that. So this is the chain. Some of it is currently disabled, and this is the final chain. But some of it is disabled because, for example, this compressor is now done with the other one, the room reverb. I first used this one, but I didn't like its sound, and I'm using another one in Logic for the room reverb. But I do have like a spring reverb for the amp. Let's see what's here and what it sounds like with that. This is almost the finished sound, so... Okay, and now with the backing track. All right, so what do we have here? Mesa Boogie Mark I, a high-watt speaker with 2 microphones. So a Shure SM57, the standard, and a Neumann 47 tube. I liked it because it gives a little bit more body, and I put it kind of farther away from the cabinet. Kind of is not as defined, a little bit more room, I guess. I did play a lot with the settings of the Mark I here. And this is Mark I that is profiled. This is not a Mark I that simulated. This is actual Mark I recorded with the profiler, like a profiler. But I did play with the gain. I reduced the gain a lot from the default settings, and played with the other settings like the clarity and definition and the EQ here to get the sound I wanted, like the more bass for the body. But in the beginning, I have the gate to remove some of the noise of the guitar. Then there's another EQ. So actually, it's like the first EQ here after the hardware EQ. And this side is mostly off, but on this side I have 6 dB at like 4K. This is for the snappiness of the guitar. So let's hear what it sounds with the Q and without. So this is with. Yeah, it kind of screams a little bit more, right? And this is also where the upper harmonics live, right? In the like the higher frequency ranges. So then it goes into Mark 1, into the speaker cabinet and mic'd up. The spring reverb. After that, there is another EQ. So this is like the Boss G7 pedal. Here I used it to give the guitar more body because the Strat is pretty thin. And of course, the P90 and kind of Les Paul, they have more body. Yeah, it's pretty thin here. So pretty thin again, and with the EQ. Yeah, so as you can see, it mostly has gain at around 800 Hertz and a little bit 400, and it removes a little bit of the 100 because there was kind of to remove the rumbling of the bass. So this is kind of like the body range of the guitar. After that, there's just a little bit tape delay, like it's 4%. I don't think there's any delay in the recording, but to me, it just added a little bit of like the room ambience. So we can maybe barely even hear that. I will remove the track, the backing track, and then you will be able to hear it better. Yeah. But with the backing track, it kind of inside, but it adds just a little bit. It just adds space when it's used, like when it's lost in the backing track. In the original recording, the guitar is much quieter. So like not now we are here, but I think original recording, it would be something like that. So it will be lost even more, but right now we're listening more to the guitar. Originally, most of the sound was built here, like the room reverb was here, and the initial compressor was here. There is another compressor here, which I forgot about, and I think it also helps to have some snaps. So it has a tach of like 30 milliseconds, which still allows like the initial snap of the guitar to come through, but also pretty quick release. So it compresses, but it doesn't make it quieter, because the release is quick, so we're going back up pretty quickly. So let's hear. Without. Yeah, so kind of thinner, right? Let's hear again this part. Yeah, there's a volume difference, but again, more energy, right? Because don't forget, this part is like not as loud as the other ones, right? Kind of similar. Let's try to make the gain. Yeah, so bringing the compression kind of brings also the reverb. Even at the same volume. But right now I'm going back to 0 because this is how I build the sound. So after that, in the original recording, we know it went back into the console. So that's again a simulation of a Neve console. Again, a suitable sound for that time. So what's in this channel plugin? Well, there is another compressor here and a little bit of EQ. There's just this sound, right? So all of these analog gear, they have specific sound to them. They have simulations of the transformers and the transformer distortion. And I believe that the additional harmonics that the transformers add, this is part of what made the guitar sing in here. And this is why I'm using all these like analog emulation plugins and also the actual like the warm audio hardware. So let's hear what it sounds without that. With. You can hear again more ambience because the compressor brings the reverb up. And let's hear the quiet part. So without, and now with. Without. The difference of this plugin is kind of maybe not huge. It adds a little bit more to the sustain and just to the analog feel. So one thing I like about this sound that kind of Gilmour often has, this initial attack has a quality to it where it's kind of very full. I imagine like a bubble of sound when he plays. I think this is where I kind of can hear it the best. Right, the sound is kind of very full, again, kind of singing quality to it. And a lot of it comes because of compression. So if I remove the compressors here, it loses some of that initial kind of attack. So which compressor is this? Is it this first one? Or the second one? So the second one. The second one is what? Right? Let's just zero in on this. And without. Yeah. So I think it's the second one. So another thing that many guitar players overlook is the choice of pick. So I find that for the clean Gilmour sounds, I like to use the Dunlop 1.5 green pick, the one with the alligator. Maybe because of its weight, kind of its thickness and the material, it can snap kind of really well and has the body. So I find I can make kind of clean, snappy sounds without picking too hard. So to get the singing sound, I had to pick softly so that the string doesn't kind of buzz at the fret and doesn't kind of break at the fret. Here, you can hear it's a very soft attack on the pick. But on the here it starts with the kind of with the harder attack on the pick, a pick stronger, and it snaps on the string, and there's no more of this kind of singing sound. Right? You can hear the sharp attack, like ka-da-da. Right? So this versus. So this is difference in just the pick attack. Okay, so now back with the backing track, and let's maybe see some other section at the end. So you can hear how this sounds like much more even with all the compression that's going on. So again, without all that, like with the clean signal, this is. This is what we went from, right? So back. So after that, this is the reverb that I use. And this is some kind of roomy reverb. So With the addition of the reverb, we're now here. With and without. With. So it's a little bit dry without the reverb, and now with the reverb it sounds better. So the last part is the mixing bus, and on the mix bus, where the two, like the backing track and the guitar combine, I have two plugins. So one is just a simulation of the console bus. So consider how the original guitar, so it went to the console, then went to the guitar amplifier, and then the microphone went into the console again. This is what we had in the other channel. And then it is combined with all the rest of the tracks, right, on the mix bus. And this just simulates the mix bus. It doesn't change the sound much. I think if we'll listen just to it, what it does, it will not be as noticeable, but it's just like this little something that, again, makes it more natural, kind of how it was recorded. So this was with, and now without. Hard to hear that, so it's pretty minor. And the last thing is a mix bus compressor. And this is like a very mu kind of compressor. And I like what it does. So it's kind of a glue compressor, right? So its idea is to make the guitar and the rest of the backing track sound a little bit more together. So let's hear without. Now with. It's pretty similar if you don't notice, but the compressor works, and it's kind of like the last level of compression. Okay, so let's hear without. And with. I will try to turn it on and off while it plays. It's very subtle, but you might hear the difference. It levels things up, so again, the quieter guitar parts become a little bit more louder, because you can see the compressor working here. Without. It's kind of loses some of the energy again. And so this is where we are. So we went from, let's say, this to this. And from this to this. So I hope this video teaches you something about how to build sound for a recording. You have to remember that what you hear on a song is not what was played in the room. It's a mixed song. So it went through the consoles, it went through the EQs, it went through the compressors, it went through all the decisions that the mixing engineers did. so that it sounds the way it sounds on the record. And this is not the sound that we get in the room, just straight from the amp most of the time, right? We still have to record the sound and then mix it into the song. And so when you do a cover or your own recording, think like a mixing engineer as well, and know the different tools that you can use to alter the sound of the guitar to fit into the recording. It's not all in the guitar, it's not all in the fingers, it's not only the amp, it's also the microphone used, it's also the console used, the EQs, the different compressors, the compressors maybe before the amp, after the amp, and the compressor that compress the whole, like mix bus, so that compress the tracks together. This is what makes the final song. And this is one of the reasons it's really hard to get the sound that you hear in the record with just your amp. Because the record is not just the amp, the record is also all the rest. And then I'm not even talking about, for example, tape, right? Because they record on tape and now we record digitally. And this is again something that I will usually do in my own recordings. I will use a tape simulator plugin to get closer. So let's try just for interest. Let's see if it makes it even better, because I didn't do it this way here. So I'll put a kind of tape machine on the guitar recording. Okay, like 16 track. Let's see if it makes any difference. We'll move it after the amplifier. Let's see. We'll put the temp after the amplifier. I don't hear much of a difference myself. Usually there's also tape in the end for the master tape. So we'll use here this tape, and this is like the 2-inch master tape. Let's see. Yeah, it sounds good. So the tape adds additional saturation and kind of harmonics. This is what they do, and this is why I will like their sound. Let's see again. Sounds louder. Let's make the guitar kind of fit more into the track. This section. Yeah, I think it sounds pretty good. It's not exactly as on the record, but I think I got all the elements that I wanted to have. Right, this is a long singing sustain, but without grainy distortion. It's a breakup when hitting the strings harder, and this overall analog feel with the singing sound and upper harmonics. So thank you for watching. I hope you liked it, and if you have any additional questions, please write below in the comments. See you next time.